Hi, good morning or good afternoon, wherever you are. My name's Pamela Edwards-Swift. I am a certified family law specialist in the state of California. And with me is Shelly John, also a California attorney.
Hi there. Good to see you all. Thank you for joining us. This is really exciting. We
Absolutely.
are really excited to be able to answer your questions about that you've always wanted to ask a family law attorney, but you didn't have a family law attorney to ask. And that is what we do for our students at Alumni, and that is what we're going to do here for you today in your Divorce Lending Mastermind Facebook group.
And Shelly, we've actually received some questions from people. Can I just kind of start throwing out some questions to you, and I'll just kind of pop in from time to time, or?
Yeah, that'll be perfect. But I think let's wait just another minute or two so people can log on. It's 10 o'clock California time, 1 o'clock Eastern time. And so let's just, maybe we can talk a little bit about our practices and kind of what you did for, how many years have you been a lawyer?
Oh my gosh, since 1986. So however many years that is, don't ask me to do math. That's why I'm a lawyer, not a CPA.
Right.
And anyway, so over 30 some odd years, I've been an attorney. I can tell you that exclusively I've been doing family law for 24 years. So family law attorney for 24 years. I became a certified specialist probably 10 years ago. Now, not every state has certification for specialists. A lot of states do. And if you do have specialists in your state, you're going to want to connect with them because they're the ones that are probably exclusively practicing family law. They're not a general practice. They're going to be just doing family law. And not only that, but we are required to be a cut above in terms of the classes we take, recommendations. We have to keep recertifying. It's not like the bar. Once you pass the bar exam, you're always an attorney and you're sworn in, you're always an attorney. It's not true when you have a certified specialist. We have to be recertified every 5 years. So if your practice, if you as an attorney start to fail to some degree, guess what? You're not going to be a specialist anymore. So
yeah, and I think another good reason to get with a specialist, if there are specialists in your state, is a certified family law specialist. They really take their education seriously, and they understand what it means to be an expert or be specialized in a particular practice area. And that's really, that model is what we modeled the alumni CDREs on, is this idea that it's important to have a specialization and extra education so that you can really meet the needs of your clients. So when you talk to a specialist, if you have, and you're coming from another level of education that is very similar just in scope, then they're going to really value what you have to offer. So another good thing to do if you have them in your area. But Pam has had a practice. She had attorneys working for her and a big staff and a big firm, and was one of the most well-respected attorneys in our area. And I don't mean was, she does a lot of mediation now. So she's respected also as a mediator. I am a family law attorney, and I have always had a solo practice. So I have a smaller, what we would call a boutique firm that serves family law clients on like a regular full representation basis. What I always say to people, go call my lawyer kind of scope. But then I also do unbundled and limited scope cases for people where they just want an attorney for the day. So it's a way to help meet the needs of family law litigants who don't have a lot of money and aren't able to hire an attorney on a full scope. And then I also do mediation. So that's a little bit about our practice areas and what we do. I think, well, let's talk about Alumni just a second and where we come from. So Pam and I are both faculty members at the Alumni Institute. And Alumni teaches realtors how to serve divorcing clients and how to really understand the divorce process and how to serve as an expert for family law attorneys and in those cases. So we have a bunch of different programs through the Alumni that we teach, and we mentor our students through that program. So that's kind of what one of the reasons we've come here today is just to give some of that information that we give to our students, but to help you understand more about divorce cases and answer your questions about those sorts of things, to help you be a better agent in those divorce cases, because they are different, right, Pam?
Definitely different. And what I wanted to add to that is that both Shelly and I were on the original group that Laurel consulted with us. So Laurel Starks, who is the creator of the Alumni Institute and the brains behind it, actually met with other experts. And the experts that she met with, we were included in those experts to help her develop the program from a family law attorney's perspective. And we also have a certified divorce real estate lender that's also part of our faculty. So she was really did a great job to get as much information as she could. And I've got to add, we also have a judge. We have a family law judge who's not, actually, she's an adjunct professor. She can't be on the faculty because of her position as a judicial officer, but she does come and is part of our adjunct faculty and is very, very supportive of what we do and is able to give a little bit of a perspective from the bench. You know, what do judges think? What do judges need to know? That type of thing. And so we have that to offer as well. And she was on the original planning in terms of developing our curriculum. And we worked very hard in getting a curriculum going that would give everyone the tools they need to have a successful practice, real estate practice in the divorce niche. Yeah. And to help the clients. I mean, that's the main thing. That's what attorneys care about. We care about helping our clients. That's what we want you guys to care about as well.
Absolutely. So with that, Pam, why don't we get into our questions?
Okay, and hopefully enough people are on now. So one of the questions was, Shelly, how to handle a spouse that wants to list with an agent when the other spouse does not trust or like the agent the spouse is trying to use. Do you have any suggestions there?
Yeah, so I'm sure many of you have run into that where one of the spouses contacts you and you're so excited because you're going to get this divorce listing, but you maybe spend too much time with that spouse, or you're a friend of the spouse or a relative of that spouse, and now the other spouse doesn't trust that you're going to look out for their best interests in that divorce case. And this, really punctuates one of the big differences between a divorce listing and a regular listing, which is in a regular listing, you usually have two parties, well, we call them parties, but you have two people who are on the same page. They both want to get the house sold. They both are moving on to that next destination together. And usually one of the two of them is kind of the one who is in charge of maybe financial decisions in the family, or is your go-to person when you're doing your listing. In divorce cases, it is the opposite. You have two people who are going two different directions, who don't trust each other. There's not just one of them who gets to make all of the financial decisions. They both get to have a say in it. And usually they can't communicate. Right? I mean, that is kind of the crux of a big difference. Now, sometimes you're going to get lower conflict cases where, they can communicate, and great, that we love those cases. Pam and I are used to training agents on how to handle these other more acrimonious cases. But what it really comes down to is it's so important that there's neutrality. I mean, we always say neutrality is the bedrock for a successful divorce listing. And if the other person does not perceive you as being neutral, they're not going to trust you. So it's important that you put steps in place to show that you're neutral, and so that they can feel comfortable that you're going to be serving their best interests too.
Shelly, can you give an example of what we see quite often that breaches that neutrality?
So if you have if the realtor is only communicating with one spouse, then the other one definitely is not going to feel that you're neutral. If you have a bias against one of the parties, so maybe one of the parties is an alcoholic, or maybe they've been charged with abusing their child, right? And you have a definite bias against that person, and they perceive that bias, they're not going to trust you. The problem is, obviously, if they don't trust you, you either can't get on the case, or even if they do list with you, you're not going to get their buy-in to do things like repairs or get a listing price or a sales contract price. You're not going to get any of that. So if they perceive that you are having too much communication, or that they are out of the loop, or that one of the biggest mistakes we see is you may go to one of the spouses and have, you may say, hey, are you okay with this listing price? And now you go to the other spouse and you say, oh, your wife said she's okay with that listing price. Are you okay with the listing price? Like, that is like the worst thing that you can say to that other spouse is, I'm interested in what the other one said. What do you think? So there's different ways and better ways to communicate that. One way would be, you don't even bring in what wife said or what wife thinks about the listing price. You just talk to husband and say, this is my recommendation, and this is the listing price that we think you should use.
That's great.
And what do you think?
Yeah, absolutely, Shelly. Thank you for that. So another question, any advice and recommendations for divorce real estate agents starting up in Canada?
Yeah, so Pam, you might be able to speak to this too. We've had a couple of students in Canada, and one of the things that we realized is that handling divorcing clients is pretty much the same. Communicating with divorce attorneys is pretty much the same, but there are differences in the law. And so, Pam, do you have a recommendation for how they can handle that?
Well, I would be talking to an attorney, so they reach out to the attorney and find out a little bit more about what a divorce looks like in Canada. That would be, it's always, obtaining education is huge. So anything that you can find out. And Shelly, maybe you have some other suggestions, but that
so I mean, listen, lawyers love to talk. Right, Pam? We love to talk.
Oh, yeah.
We love to hear ourselves. We love to sound smart. We love teaching people. We love mentoring people. So just call around. I mean, if you do not know a family law attorney in Canada, pull out the phone book, pull out Google and find some family law attorneys and just call and see if you can ask them about the divorce process in Canada, and see what, maybe you can cull some different ideas and understandings, do some research on Google about divorces in Canada. And then it's all about all the things that Pam and I talk about, or the articles that you see from Laurel, all the blogs that we put out, all of our trainings. It all teaches you how to communicate with the spouses, how to understand your role in the divorce process, how to get past impasse when you hit a roadblock, and how to communicate with attorneys. And then if you are in our expert program, it's about how to be an expert in all of those things. So Pam, there's a follow-up question.
This, where is the resource of Canadian family law so as a realtor can better handle the case? I don't know if I quite understand that.
I don't know. I would just say Google family law attorney. And I don't know if they'll charge for the consultation. You can ask. I mean, in America, we probably wouldn't charge for the consultation. I doubt they're going to charge for a consultation in Canada.
Yeah, especially if you're not there to consult so much as a client.
Right.
You're there as another professional that is interested in learning more about family law. And if you approach it that way, not as I'm a real estate agent that's here to get your listings, it is I'm interested in becoming more educated in family law. Do you mind? Can I take you to lunch?
Yeah.
And would you mind explaining to me what the divorce process is? I mean, when is it filed? Is there some sort of a timing? Do you have to wait a certain amount of time that you're separated before you can file, or can you file right away? What is the process once the case is filed? What is the process? Those types of questions, and just kind of understanding, and then let them talk. Because, for instance, one of the biggest jokes is, tell an attorney says, well, Your Honor, I only have 2 minutes of argument, and a half an hour later, they're still talking, right? So
I ask attorneys, Pam, when they say that, I said, is that lawyer time or real people time?
Absolutely, or real people time. There you go. And so And that's the thing, is once you start asking them questions, if you're asking the questions, they're going to talk their head off. So that's basically what we would have. Okay, another question. Other than family law attorneys, what other professionals could benefit from a divorce real estate agent or a CDA, what they provide? Who else could benefit other than attorneys?
Oh, yeah. So I would say therapists. What else, Pam? Therapists, lenders, mediators.
Yeah, mediators,
yeah. Yeah, and the lenders, yeah. So anybody who deals with people who are divorcing can benefit from having a CDR because, or a trained real estate agent who understands divorce real estate.
Forensic accountants, I just thought about.
Forensic accountants would be one. Yeah, because they're dealing with people who are likely going to sell a home and can then refer and would be more comfortable referring to somebody that they know really understands the nuances of divorce real estate.
So another question, is it better for the couples to sell their house before filing for divorce or to wait? What would you say to that, Shelly?
So we always have a joke that whenever people ask us questions like that, what is our answer always, Pam? It depends.
It depends. Every situation's different. We can't tell you how much the divorce is going to cost. We can't tell you right now when you first come in the door, is it better to sell now or not? We need information. We need information. So without that information, we can't give advice. And there's so many different things that can happen. Do you have, in fact, Shelly, you talked about this recently.
We did.
Recently.
Yeah, so you think about a case where the parties, let's say they haven't filed for divorce and they say, okay, let's go ahead and sell the house and we'll both split the equity. So we'll each take half of the sales proceeds. Well, in some cases, there might have been what we call a separate property contribution to the house, maybe the down payment or to certain improvements. And in some states that matters. And in some states they can ask for reimbursement of that money off the top of the sales proceeds. So that's just one little example of something that could happen that they wouldn't know about if they don't first talk to a family law attorney before they list the house. So it doesn't mean that they shouldn't or they should. It's just they really need to get information before they make that decision.
Shelly, a question came in just now about mediation and what our thoughts are on mediation. And if I could just kind of start and you can pick up on it. But Dennis is the one that asked the question. I would say both Shelly and I are huge proponents of mediation. The one thing about family law that we see, and it's very tragic with litigation, is it destroys families. Litigation destroys families. That being said, there are some cases that I feel like sometimes I've made a mistake as an attorney thinking, oh, this case should settle. It can settle. And we spend too much time trying to settle the case when you have one personality that there is no way it's going to settle. They have to have their day in court. And unfortunately, that happens. It's less often than you'd think, but it does happen. And sometimes you have to go to court, but you're going to save money. If parties can mediate, they are going to definitely save money. And by the way, they could be involved in litigation, and this happens quite often, where the parties are in the middle of litigation and they both are so sick of the litigation and they're telling their attorneys, I don't want to go to court anymore. What can we do? And guess what? They can still mediate. So even with attorneys, they can mediate. Even with attorneys already in the case, and with, again, get to know the mediators, the attorneys who are mediators, because they need to refer people for listings as well. So make sure, like we already said, contact not just family law attorney, but a family law mediator definitely could be in your wheelhouse of people to develop a relationship with. Because mediation definitely is going to be less expensive. It's less wear and tear on the body, less wear and tear on your soul.
And on the kids.
Mm-hmm.
Less wear and tear on the kids.
Big one on the kids. By the way, that's one of the things that we focus on, and we have on our faculty actually minors counsel, an attorney who represents children regularly. And it's Marie Moreno Myers is her name. She's also a certified family law specialist, and she focuses on the children. And that's such a huge part of what we like to see our CDREs concentrate on is they're helping the family. They're not just selling the house, they're helping the family, and that includes the children. Okay, so another question is, what is the most common challenge that a new CDRE may encounter, and what are the most common challenges a realtor encounters?
Okay, so I would say, I think we should answer the question about what are the most common challenges that a realtor would encounter in a divorce listing. Sure. Our CDREs are trained on how to respond to the challenges. So the challenges often may show up to start, but then they know how to respond to them. But these are common challenges in divorce cases. So one of them we've talked about, you have difficult spouses who either they don't know how to communicate, they won't agree on anything, or one of them has maybe a personality disorder and just it's really difficult to get their cooperation. And why do you need cooperation? You need it when you're determining the listing price, when you're talking about the sales price, when you're talking about repairs, all of those things. You have to get cooperation from both of these people. So a common challenge is to have one spouse or both who just won't agree to certain things or is difficult to communicate with. We talked about too, you might have a spouse who doesn't want you on the case. Oftentimes you have a spouse who doesn't want to sell the house even, right? They've been living in this house forever. I have a case just this week where one of the spouses just has her head in the sand and thinking she can buy out. And she makes $2,200 a month and the house is like $800,000, right? There's no way she's going to be able to afford to buy out. But as the attorneys on the case, I recognize that until I get her past that block, we're not going to get anywhere. So the other attorney and I have talked about how to structure this so that we can make her go, try and get her pre-approval, which she won't be able to get, but just keep everything on track and keep it moving quickly. But so that's a common one. Untrained realtors try to list the house too soon, right? They don't get the buy-in of both spouses, or maybe only one spouse is on title and they try to sell the house without getting the agreement of the other party. And Pam and I could go on and on about why that is a huge problem and why you should never do it. And we will, I'm sure, in another Q&A session. But
I just want to throw something in briefly, if I can, Shelly. I'm sorry. Yeah. What came to mind right now is I had a nightmare of a case. There were 5 properties to sell. And my client, I had the husband who, let's just say he had a different way of doing things than the norm. And so this realtor convinced him that he didn't need any approval from the court or the wife or his attorney, which was me, because after all, he was on title and you don't need any of these people. You can decide on your own. It created so much litigation in that case because that realtor made one statement to my client who liked to do things his own way. It cost my client, I am not exaggerating when I tell you it cost my client over $100,000 in litigation costs just because of that advice. So it was huge. And I had to work my rear end off to make certain he wasn't sanctioned by the court, because he was on the verge of being sanctioned by the court, my client was. So wow. I just had to throw that out there. When you said that, it struck a chord with me. I had to talk about it.
Well, and the reality, Pam, we have tons of those stories, right? I mean, not $100,000, but lots of those stories. And it is so unfortunate, and the disservice that a realtor can do to a family or to a person when they don't understand the divorce process. And that's another thing, a challenge that realtors have, is if they don't understand the divorce process, they don't know where the house falls. They don't know where the parties are in the case. They don't understand what remedies are available with regard to the house, because they don't understand the divorce process. They don't prepare the proper documents in the event that maybe a court order does need to be obtained regarding the house. They don't know how to keep the records that are important for that. So many problems if you don't understand divorce and where this house falls into it, because a huge thing to understand. In a divorce, the court has jurisdiction over this house, no matter who's on title. The court has jurisdiction. So the court, at the end of the day, everything has to be approved. And so there's different ways to do it. You can do it by agreement, but that's an aside. But understand that the parties don't just get to do whatever they want because the property is theirs. There's rules around it. And attorneys need to, or realtors need to understand that. And when they don't understand it, then the listing can get stalled because they don't know where they are in the process, and parties might be dragging their feet, or the court process might just be taking a long time, and then the realtor doesn't know what to do, and so the listing stalls, and then it expires. And now you've put all this time and effort into it and nothing has happened, and the parties have now been paying that many more mortgage payments or missing that many more mortgage payments, and it's a huge disservice to them.
Yeah, absolutely. So
yeah.
Shelly, can I ask another question? I think, and then I want to talk about something about attorneys here.
Yeah, and we will, and let me just say, Pam,
yeah,
we could go on and on about that question.
Oh my gosh, yes, we have so many examples. I mean, we could do 3 hours on examples we have of mistakes made.
Yeah.
Okay, should we always CC both attorneys? This is coming from a realtor. Should we always CC both attorneys, or should we email the attorneys separately when there are issues or anytime we give updates? What do you think, Shelly? I know the answer.
My initial answer is always CC both, but there are limited exceptions. So if you are having a really hard time with one party, there might be an exception to where you would contact just that person's attorney. But for the most part, when you're doing everything else, both attorneys should be on the same email thread.
Yeah, absolutely. And a good example of that, Shelly, that we see quite often in these acrimonious divorces is the part that you may have the parties living separate and apart. And so there may be the person who's living in the house does not want to sell. And so you'll get these requests for showings and it's denied, 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 denied. And so that would be a good example of when to contact that person's attorney to say, I have to report on this. You may want to talk to your client. If they're not showing the house, letting the house be shown, I have to report that to the court. I have to report that to the other attorney, whatever. And just to give them a chance to get people in line, get their client in line. And usually the attorneys are going to be able to get their client in line.
Yep.
So I think, Dennis, we're going to have to save that question for another time. He's asking about reverse mortgages. We're going to have to save that.
Let me just say, though, Dennis, there is a place for you to be educating attorneys on that option, because most attorneys don't understand the option. All we know is what Tom Selleck tells us, and that's not very much. So there is definitely a place for education on that. But yeah, we can.
Yeah, without a doubt. And yeah, definitely. Okay, Susan just said, how do you handle a situation when the judge says, tell your lender to just take you off the deed, show them what I've signed? Oh my gosh. So actually our own Laurel Starks was in court one day and was ready to shout out in court when she heard the judge say just that. Ordered the gentleman to, you must sign this deed. I'm ordering you right now to sign this deed. And if you don't, I'm going to find you in contempt of court. And don't worry, sir, because he said, hey, if I sign over the deed, my lender, I'm still on the loan. And the judge actually said, oh, no, you're not. You will not be on the loan. Just take this, just take my order to the lender, and the lender will take you off the loan. Wrong. That's not going to happen. So here's what I want to say where you're needed. Where you are needed, this is what attorneys worry about. We worry about doing the best job we can for our clients, the best job. That's what we want to do. We also worry about committing malpractice. So can you imagine giving advice like that? Oh, don't worry about it. I'm just going to write up this order. You'll be okay. That's malpractice, potentially. So really what you want to do is make certain that your clients, as an attorney, attorneys want to make certain their clients are protected. And how do we do that? We rely on experts every day. And you as a trained realtor are an expert in a field that we don't have, that we don't know. We may think we do because we own a home, because we're real estate investors, because whatever we've done as attorneys in our own personal life. But guess what? We don't know what you know. And that's it. They don't know what they don't know, right? So that's what we do at Alumni, is teaching our CDREs how to approach the attorneys and how to educate the attorneys so that they are the attorney's resource, the court's resource. The court will look to you, the attorneys will look to you, and obviously the ancillary benefit is you're going to get a lot of listings.
Yeah. Wow, look at the time.
It flew by.
Oh my gosh, so fast.
We could go on and on.
Because why? Because we're lawyers and we love to talk. So we hope this was really helpful for you. We are often in the Divorce Lending Real Estate Mastermind Facebook group. So if you do have questions, go ahead and post them in there. You can tag either one of us, Pamela Edwards-Swift or Shelly Jean John, and we will do our best to answer your questions. We will go ahead and do another Q&A, so watch for that in the Facebook group and in your emails. We'll give you the date and time when that is scheduled. And then, of course, if you are interested in getting more training, you can always go on to our website and find out the different programs that we have there. But certainly no obligation. This was really just to help give you some information and give you some guidance so you can better help divorcing families. So we hope this was helpful. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, everyone. Bye. Have a great day.